another parent was asking about tips on helping a child pronounce words. So with that, I'm assuming a child who have specific maybe articulation difficulties and able to be able to say the sound, or might be making errors where they don't necessarily, like phonological errors we call it, where they might not hear themselves make that error. A lot of kids might sometimes say, the tat says meow, and you go, no, it's the cat, and they go, yeah, I said tat. So they don't necessarily know what that is. So that's a phonological process. If it's a very severe forms phonological processes, there might be limited sounds that's being used in combination, and maybe a preference for specific sounds as well, and might make it really hard to understand a child if they have difficulty around speech sounds. I think the most important thing to remember around speech sounds and what works would be to keep in mind the child's age and developmental stage. What sounds are they already producing, and where does that fit on the type of speech sounds we expect at different ages? For some kids, it might be later on that we see these speech sounds pop up, and for others, it could happen quite early. And there's a lot of different research out there around speech sounds, and to be honest, probably the most complex thing that we do as speech and language therapists. For example, when they did some research around whether speech and language therapy assistants can provide language therapy, they didn't actually see a difference between the assistants providing it and speech and language therapists doing it, which didn't make us feel very good about ourselves. It wasn't great for the ego, but it's great to show that when you train somebody, it's not going to be that hard to see a difference in language therapy. What was really hard to see the progress in is with the speech sounds, because it was proven that the speech and language therapists held a lot of knowledge around what tools can be used with a child with a specific combination of errors. So I know this sounds like I'm going around the houses now getting with this answer, but it's because it's such a complex thing that has to be unpicked. But there are a couple of things that parents can do to help their kids with their speech sound development. So the first thing, and this is also in our training that we do around communication and supporting children's communication skills, I talk about modeling and recasting, and we have video models to show how you would actually do this with a child. But I'm just briefly going to talk about how you might do that. So the first part is where you use modeling and recasting. So recasting specifically is where we're going to do a gentle correction of speech language errors. And we're going to use that to correct the errors. And we don't point it out, we just repeat the word correctly. Now, the reason why we do this, if I asked any of you to say, okay, I'm going to teach you an Afrikaans word, and it's going to be the hardest one I can think of, and that's the word for peanut butter sandwich, which is grondboontjie boter toebroodjie. An easy one, right? So if I go say it, and then you try it, and I go, no, not like that. It's grondboontjie boter toebroodjie. Sooner or later, you'd either want to slap me or you'd want to walk away. Now, kids are exactly like that. We're all humans. We all react the same way to correction. It is much nicer when somebody says to you, grondboontjie boter toebroodjie. You try it, grondboontjie boter toebroodjie. Oh, that's fantastic. You tried to say the word, right? A lot more positive, right? A lot more pleasant to be around that person. So recasting works in that way, that we repeat the word again, but we just say it correctly. So for example, if a child says tat instead of cat, you can say, oh, you see a big cat, a I love cats. I love big cats and little cats. I think my favorite cats are black cats. And today I saw a mommy cat and a daddy cat and a brother cat and a sister cat and a granny cat. So your aim actually here, and this is what the research shows us, that if we go for 18 repetitions of that word in a minute, which I was almost at with that example, the better a chance a child is going to be able to say the word cat correctly, right? Because we're giving lots of opportunities to hear the word. So when we say that word very clearly, it does help. So recasting is really good for that. You can also recast language. You can say, if a child says, I go to the shop, you can go, yes, you went to the sweet shop yesterday. So you're adding a little bit of information. You're not going, no, you didn't. It's not goed, it's wet. You're more likely to get a positive response. We also don't say, you say this in front of it. So you don't say, you say cat, because again, that is correction. So if you say, I talk about modeling, for example, we're going to emphasize the words we want to draw their attention to. We're going to only model when it feels natural to do that, and you don't interrupt the flow of the conversation. Because in essence, all conversations, whether they're nonverbal with a child, because conversations can happen, right? Your kid drags you to the fridge and pulls at you and goes, ah, right? That's communicating very clearly. So there are turns taking in that interaction too. When we have those turns and it feels natural to do that, you can go, oh, the fridge. You want me to open the fridge. Okay, we can open the fridge. What would you get from the fridge? So you can, depending on which words you want to target, you can model and recast, whether it's language or whether it's speech sound errors too. Now, there are lots of other tips and tricks with it that therapists use, and some of the tips and tricks I talk about a little bit more in the training. Today's maybe not enough time to do that, but that's I'd say recasting probably be my top recommendation. And when they did the research and said what made the biggest difference as a tool or a skill that we use with kids with speech and language difficulty, modeling was above everything else. It was the most effective strategy above anything. So if you even just do that, you're going to make a huge difference to your child's language skills, where they learn the words and to understand what they mean, but also to hear you say it. Because there are so many reasons why kids have speech sound difficulties. Sometimes it's because their hearing might be down because of ear infections or just fluid in the ear. It doesn't necessarily have to be infected. And then sounds sound different every time you hear it. And if it sounds different every time, if there's a 15 decibel difference when you have a fluid in the middle ear, that's the difference between maybe hearing difference between fit and sit. So if it doesn't sound the same way every time you hear it, what's the chance that you're going to be able to say and feel comfortable that you're going to know which word to say? So a lot of kids would step back a little bit and wait it out. They also get used to not listening to themselves, and half of speech sound work is listening. If we can get them to tune in to what they are doing and what it sounds like, and that if you make a speech error, it changes the meaning of the word, then we've got it done.